All right. Good morning, everyone. It is Friday, December 5th. Welcome to your Breaking Points Friday show. We got Emily, we got Ryan, and we have Macaulay Holmes here in the studio today. How's everybody doing?
Glad to have
Producer
Mac
Mac, how you doing?
Fired up and ready to go.
Incredible.
And no Crystal, no Sagar. We'll make it.
Everybody, feel free to tune out now or go big in the comments for us. You know, maybe support the Friday show. This band of pirates. We have a big show today. We've got more strikes on Venezuela. We're going to be talking to Ryan about his war on the new Pentagon press corps. We've got some news on the January 6th pipe bomber than Kash Patel. We also have a little bit more betting news. Perhaps we'll get into a little bit of Candace Owens versus TPUSA, and perhaps if we have time, even a little bit of Olivia Nuzzi. So quite a big Friday show planned for you today. But I wanted to start with Ryan. Ryan, we have to ask. You were on Steve Bannon's show yesterday, and are you ready to issue an apology? How dare you? What happened here? Should we just throw up a clip before Ryan defends himself? Mac, throw up a second. Let's give the audience some texture.
Let's look at some of this glazing that took place yesterday.
Tropical glazing.
All over the story. Look forward to having you back. I want people to start going to your site on Dropsite News. Where do people go? What's your social media?
Yeah, dropsitenews.com on all social, and we're on all social platforms at Dropsite News. Yeah, I think the posse will find a lot useful there.
I think they will find a lot useful. You're an intrepid reporter, sir, and a voice of truth. Sometimes people love it, and sometimes people love it less. But you're a warrior. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you.
No lies.
You're a warrior, Ryan.
Oh,
no
warrior.
lies detected. How'd it go, Ryan?
It was hilarious. I guess that's gonna have to be a new semi-ironic pinned tweet. He finishes talking about me being tough as boot leather, which is just comical coming from Bannon. Awfully leathery dude, so he would know. It was great to be on because he's got a huge audience, and we had just published a story this week about how Keir Starmer and his political machine had spent years actively and secretly destroying both left-wing and conservative media ecosystems. We covered the story yesterday because one of the outlets that they secretly went after, well, they went after it publicly, but what wasn't known is that it was Keir Starmer's machine that was behind it. One of those outlets was The Federalist, where Emily used to work, and she remembers the way that that this was a quite effective, actually, attack on the monetization of news outlets that were oppositional to them. On the left, they effectively destroyed this major progressive publication in the UK called The Canary. It's just now recovering, but they went from something like 20 plus full-time staff and an influential force in UK media to like one person. Thanks to this secret attack. And the whole aim of it was to destroy Corbynism inside the Labour Party and to elevate Keir Starmer. So I don't think Bannon has a whole lot of love for Corbynism, but he does have love for Breitbart, The Federalist, and the other right-wing papers, and is against having them censored. So it was a good outlet to get that story out. By the way, the book, it's an adapted excerpt and expanded reporting from a book called The Fraud, which I have here, and which people should get if they want to learn the nitty gritty about Keir Starmer. It's by Paul Holden, a journalist over in the UK. But yeah, so that was fun. As Emily knows, I listen to the War Room sometimes to like keep up with what the populist right is up to. So I'm familiar with the posse and the shenanigans they get up to.
It was like a long-time listener, first-time caller situation.
That's right.
Was there a little bit of a Trump Mamdani energy in the room there? Left-wing populist, right-wing populist.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
This is the real MAGA communism, right?
Yeah. And people were asking if I asked him about the Epstein connections. I had actually asked him about that 2 weeks ago for a story that we wrote about Epstein, him, and Modi, trying to arrange a meeting between him and Modi. But no, I didn't. You can go watch the interview. I didn't ask questions. I was getting questions asked of me.
Well, we accept your apology, Ryan, for platforming this figure.
You just platformed him.
You're right. We're all stained. Our blood, the blood's on all of our hands here. But Ryan, you will be sharing a cell next time. You guys can be bunkmates.
There we go.
In the next
Ryan
time, you guys both
beat Bannon
go to the
to getting arrested by decades.
Of course. Ryan made it cool first. But let's get to our top story today. More strikes in Venezuela. Mac, you can pull it up here. Pete Hegseth announced yet another strike here. And I think another thing that someone flagged is he seemed to do it at the request of a TPUSA producer. Andrew Colvett said, "Oh, it'd be awesome if we could get more of these strikes." Pete Hegseth tweeted it, Mac, if we could pull that up next, and said, "Yeah, we got it here for you. Your wish is our command, Andrew. Just sunk another narco boat." So TPUSA still very relevant in the conversation here. Ryan, what do we make of this?
I'm curious how Emily would understand this, but Charlie Kirk, personally lobbied at some expense, Trump not to attack Iran. Trump apparently even yelled at him over it. Like, Kirk knew that what he was doing was risky and was going to cost him a little bit. You now have a TPUSA reporter in the Pentagon press room agitating for new strikes against Iran. And now you've got this TPUSA producer like asking, to blow up more boats and to burn more people alive. That doesn't feel, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Kirk would just absolutely love this stuff. But it feels off given Kirk's kind of turn towards more America First isolationism.
It's been interesting because the divide that I expected to be at least a little, a little more salient, it's just not there. I don't know why it's not there. I think maybe people, I would expect it to be quieter if we were actually doing this with like Sinaloa, right? So like if the entire predicate for this alleged operation was more believable, that this was actually about the people who are trafficking fentanyl into the country every single year and killing American kids, mixing it up with cocaine or whatever. But even in this situation where you have language that feels like it's ripped straight out of 2002 and 2003, I don't know. I don't know where different people would have fallen down on it. I do know that it's really like the America First world is pretty.
They're fine.
Pretty much fine with it. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, but I don't know if I don't think they know how actual like average Republicans are going to react to this going into the future, because people genuinely are sick of this. And if there's a power vacuum in Venezuela that starts to feel a lot like Iraq in 2003, it's going to look like another blunder. I think pretty obviously it's going to look like another blunder. And one of the big blind spots, I think, on the right is there's a lack of you either have to go with the normie conservatives, or you have to go with like the fringe like bigots to get criticism of Trump. And I feel like there's a big opening because there's all kinds of decisions being made that normal Trump voters are like, whoa. And normie conservatives aren't pushing the brakes. It's only like the fringe people who are.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, like, yeah, the populist right does, like the Matt Gaetz types. They do all seem to be just fine, not just fine with it, but like lusting for it.
Gaetz had a decent question at that presser. We talked about that already, Ryan. But that was
Yeah. He had another good one. We can get into it in a little bit. And Berea, the guy he's talking to, not going to say he was drunk, but I'll let people judge for themselves.
You wouldn't say that. You
with
wouldn't
his
say
answer.
that.
I would never suggest that they're day drinking at the Pentagon now that the actual press corps is
We'll get
gone.
that. We'll get that in a second. But Mac, my question for you, Mac, is like, it's one thing when we see the politicians like Josh Shapiro signing bombs to go, strike Palestinians, but now it's podcasters.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my question for Emily is like, if they're kind of going along on the right with the boat strikes, do you think that dynamic will change? Would there be a fracture if we actually do the full regime change operation? Because that's like an entirely different thing. Like I can see people excusing blowing up a couple boats in the Caribbean, but like full-blown regime change in the Western Hemisphere, massive destabilization. We're trying to force this Machado woman into power. Like, is that not going to lead to any sort of major divide in the right? Is everybody just going to sort of fall in line on this? Because it seems like that would be a major fracture point broadly with Americans.
Yeah, and Marco Rubio is really intentionally making the argument that there's nothing more America first than tending to your own hemisphere. That if you're America first, you should be cheering this because it's about hemispheric defense. And I think that's pretty obviously,
America first is in like the Americas.
Anywhere can be America. Anywhere can identify as an American border. But yeah, I think that's why he's like.
I think Machado probably identifies as an American.
Yeah, she probably does. But that's why they're making that argument. So I think they understand that people are not into regime change wars. I think what actually would really change things, and some of this is, American bravado, like people don't really worry too much about like Venezuela, don't feel super threatened by Venezuela. But if American boots that aren't just like CIA boots, but like American troops are in an operation on the ground in Venezuela, I do think you'll have more people looking around and being like, what the hell is going on? Why are we doing this?
Right.
But honestly, I just think people don't see it. It doesn't feel to people like a massive invasion of Iraq or Afghanistan. And so they might not love it, but they also just don't care that much. That's my explanation.
I guess I don't see how rapid the flip was between all of the rhetoric on, we're not going to do the sort of unnecessary foreign wars and regime change operations. We're going to be America first, to immediately it's like, no, the neocons are actually in control. Like Lindsey Graham is celebrating Trump's actions every day and Marco Rubio seems to be steering the ship. Like it's just a complete betrayal of the vibes, the energy that I feel like the MAGA coalition was trying to form themselves as.
Well, Ryan pointed out the like Charlie Kirk flying to Washington and getting yelled at by Trump over Iran. And I think that's super interesting. And Ryan, you might have more thoughts on that. But people felt like Trump was vindicated with Operation Midnight Hammer and that they were made to look a fool. And, I don't necessarily think that's the case, but that's, people felt like they had maybe a little bit of egg on their face and are potentially holding their powder, but that doesn't change. Going into a midterm cycle, the average right of center voter is like, my grocery bills are still high, and you guys you have people on the ground in Venezuela. Like, what are we doing? So it doesn't change the possibility of that happening for them in the midterm year too.
Yeah, I think people, when it came to the Midnight Hammer, people were happy that Trump did not do more than 12 days of bombing. And so kind of just all collectively decided to pretend that he was a champion for stopping his own bombing. Like he's out there celebrating himself for reaching this ceasefire, which is like, you're the one doing the firing. It's like, all you have to do is stop shooting. So congratulations. And because the kind of populist isolationist right wanted that to happen, they were like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, great job, Trump. But I don't think anybody really actually genuinely celebrates his like starting a bombing campaign and then ending it.
Right.
Except, well, this
it's
leads
better than
nicely
a
to
never-ending bombing campaign and occupation of Iran. Yes, well, that's true.
Well, speaking of celebrating and trying to add some public positivity to the mix on all these foreign affairs, this leads us nicely to Ryan, your war with the new Pentagon press corps here in DC. Mac, can you throw up some of the first images? I got 2 images here.
Here, let's get the group photo.
Let's get the group photo in first. Now, there's been Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but basically all the people in this photo have signed something saying that they will not leak or basically report any information that they get that would be considered negative or
there will be no journalism occurring
obtrusive
in this photograph.
Yeah, and we've got another one here, Mac. Can you throw up the second one here? They've been taking photos of themselves, doing photo shoots in these empty offices that the journalists used to occupy. Now the influencers are here doing photo shoots. We've got an infamous Cam Higbee here. He's been one of the main provocateurs, and his caption here for people listening says, "Journalism degrees are useless and needlessly expensive. I just proved it." Ryan, what are we supposed to make of all this?
I mean, he's right about that.
He is, and I'm pretty sure that at Dropsite News, we don't have a single person with a journalism degree, like at all. I think we're about 10 journalists, I think, on staff at this point, and I'm pretty sure none of them went to journalism school. He's correct that you do not have to go to journalism school, but if I were him, I would stop boasting about my lack of education. Just him personally. Like in general, it's good. That's fine. You don't need to go to journalism school. This guy specifically doesn't seem to understand what journalism is. He and his friends are out there saying that the previous press corps was bad because they were adversarial. They used the word adversarial with negative connotations. He said they were harassing the press secretary. The press secretary there said that they would knock on her door all hours of the day and come in and ask her questions. And
that's a level of assault.
Sometimes other journalists would have an appointment and a second journalist would come in with that journalist and also ask her questions. And also they would stand outside the Secretary of Defense, now the Secretary of War's office, to wait until he came out to see who he was meeting with. Like, these were the examples that she was giving that he was elevating as the kinds of things that that the press corps, was embarrassing itself by doing. Laura Loomer went even further, saying it's illegal to nothing wrong with what she signed because it's illegal to publish classified information. That goes beyond what this new Pentagon press corps even agreed to. What they agreed to in this document that they shamefully signed is that they would not ask anybody other than authorized Pentagon officials for information. Like, that's absurd. What the document does allow for is if you don't ask, as long as you don't ask, and somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, I have information for you," then you're allowed to publish that according to this document. Now, like, how are you supposed to confirm that? Like, let's say somebody hands you a document that's classified and says, like, this is a war crime, you should go out and report this. According to the Pentagon's rules that they agreed to, you can't then go to any other sources with that and say, this is what I've heard, can you confirm that this is true? So it appears like they don't understand what journalism is, because what they've agreed to do is just when the press secretary wants to talk to them, the press secretary will talk to them. Don't ask her any questions except during a briefing. Don't knock on my door. Whether or not sending an email to the press secretary counts.
Well, and didn't one of these guys put out a tweet yesterday that was like, I just spoke to Pete Hegseth for a little interview. It was off the record, so I can't tell you anything that was said, but it was a great conversation.
And what's funny too is that the Pentagon might end up regretting bringing in people who have no idea what they're doing.
Yes.
Because some of these guys came out of this off the record meeting and started talking about like what questions were asked and what they would and wouldn't answer. And it's like, I mean, I'm all for these guys breaking their off the record vows that they make to the Pentagon officials, but like, that's not what off the record means. Like off the record means it's like off the record. But these guys don't know. I don't think that they were like being deceitful. I just think they don't know like the basics of journalism. And so they're like, it was off the record and this is what he said. It's like,
So we might accidentally get
Yes.
some news out of these guys.
we might. Now another problem that it at least raises concern. So do you see my my Matt Gaetz Berea?
It's that video at the bottom.
You want me to
comment
hold this
here.
up?
So Gaetz, we should play this because it's fun. It's funny, and you guys will see why it's funny as you listen to this guy slurring his words through the answer. But also, and maybe Matt Gaetz is just really fired up about like the performance of the F-35 platform, and I know he has been for a long time. But when you bring in non-regular press corps that doesn't have the same kind of standards, how do we know whether or not these reporters have consulting contracts with other weapons contractors? Like, so if you're going to just let anybody in who will sign this document, let's say they're working for Raytheon. Let's say they're working on the side for Raytheon or a lobbyist that worked for Raytheon doing some consulting work. And then they start asking questions about how awful this like Lockheed project is. Like the Lockheed project might be terrible, but it's like, do we feel comfortable that this stuff is on the up and up? So let's roll the Gaetz thing. And I'm not saying he's getting paid by Raytheon or whatever. I don't know, but like, what do we know about this?
Platforms that I've long been a critic of. I'll start with the F-35. They cost about $100 million a copy. What percentage of the F-35 are fully mission capable today?
So that's a great question, Matt, and I appreciate you getting after it because not enough. Not enough. It is the most capable fighter that we have right now.
When it flies.
When it flies, you're right. It is the most capable fighter. What we have right now, and you saw last month in the acquisition speech, is a department and leadership that's willing to get after it, to challenge industry to produce better.
Yeah, but what percentage of them can fly?
So not enough. Not enough.
So but you just called it our most capable platform, and less than 40% of them, by my last review of the Air Force's statements, are fully mission capable. Why is it not failure for a platform to perform at less than 40% when it costs $100 million?
So, Matt, looking at it holistically, sure, you can throw out the number 40%. But when you look at Operation Midnight Hammer, Operation Rough Rider,
Those weren't F-35 was not delivering the payload on Midnight Hammer.
but they were supporting, right? And so those B-2s wouldn't have gotten there without that. The airplane.
What would have stopped them?
There are plenty of surface-to-air missile systems that the Iranians have. We know that. We know
Did they shoot any of them?
No, they didn't, because we were so successful.
bad.
And that platform, the F-35, is an amazing platform that can go after these systems.
The video.
Okay,
The
what's going
B-roll
on
of
with
the
him?
F-35.
What is going on in that interview, Ryan? I know you had some commentary attached to this tweet here.
I mean, yeah, I was saying maybe this new press corps, Cam and the others, can find out if they're day drinking at the Pentagon now. And not that there's anything wrong with that, and I don't know. Hey, go for it. But yeah, and I think Matt Gaetz is exactly right, by the way, that the F-35 is trash. It's a gigantic boondoggle. It's one more ripoff of the American taxpayer and our military-industrial complex. But I also don't know like who's planting, who's seeding those questions. Like that's now the old press corps is part of the military-industrial complex too. Like they benefit. A lot of the trade press, sells their, products to Lockheed and, sells their newsletters and whatnot to like Lockheed.
Oh yeah, not even the
Raytheon
trade press.
and all the others.
Yeah, even like Politico, Axios.
Politico,
like
Raytheon, yeah, like
sponsorships,
weapons
yeah.
makers are major funders of Washington journalism. So it's not like it would be unique, but it's like acute corruption versus like general corruption. Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah. I think
And all of this happened right after this second strike on September 2nd. Like if you look at the timeline, Hegseth recreated, what it means to be a Pentagon reporter after this. And people who are close to him think that those things are connected. That he was doing this as an effort to stop the Pentagon press from looking into the war crimes that they're committing?
So I feel like they would be doing this regardless, because the Pentagon, and Ryan, you'll know this better than I do, but the Pentagon is this like massive, sprawling building. And if you give reporters a physical foothold in the door, which they had, and you're Pete Hegseth, and, you know, there are a lot of decisions that Pete Hegseth might make to upset the war machine that we might like. There are some that are not going to upset the war machine that we will definitely dislike, for example, the boat strikes. But there are a lot of like old school Pentagon people in there that definitely are leaking to reporters. And so I feel like they were trying to figure out a way to make that stop and landed on this bizarre policy. So I feel like they were going to do this no matter what at some point, because they don't want these, like Jennifer Griffin of Fox News, who Hegseth snapped at, if everyone remembers in that presser, they cannot stand the people who have had their offices there forever. And they know they've got those, they're getting those coffees with the leakers, people are coming in and out, all of that stuff, because yes, you can send classified information over Signal, for example. You can leak it over Signal, for example, but it's a whole lot easier to say something in person. So they know.
So
that's why I think it would have
Hegseth,
happened no matter what.
Yeah.
So Pete Hegseth takes over their department, had a drinking problem. Now I guess everyone at the department has a drinking problem. I've never seen someone have to slur surface to air missile system. That's hard to say drunk. That's a tongue twister.
That is.
But Emily, to your point earlier about there being sort of like this like open area where for like there's an open niche for a more normal person to critique the Trump administration or what have you. Perhaps it's not going to be happening with Cam Higbee and this press corps. Are there other people that you could say like, oh, like maybe this person could come up and rise to the moment, or are we just seeing like a lack of a bench in the conservative commentator sphere and journalist sphere?
I always wait for Matt Gaetz to do it, honestly, because Gaetz is on foreign policy, like really sharp about these types of things. It's mostly the foreign policy. He was trying to get rid of the AUMF. He was trying to get our troops out of Africa. Like, he's actually very opposed to a lot of the old school, not neocons, but like even America First type people who have neoconservative sympathies. So it's there for the taking if Gaetz wants it. He definitely dabbles in it, that's for sure. Sagar is somebody who does it, but Sagar is like definitely detached himself from the broader conservative movement and isn't like really a part of that world. So there's a lot of room, and I think people are misunderstanding why a lot of folks turn to like the fringe commentators. It's like they're the only ones criticizing this insane Venezuela policy. Like, that's it. Like, where else are you gonna get it? You either have to like listen to the left, or I don't know, like Ben Shapiro.
Wow, a plethora of options here. Well, I wanted to move us to this next story. Emily, I want to throw to you for this one. This is the January 6th pipe bomber. Folks, we got him. Mission accomplished. Mac, if you could throw up this tear sheet, and Emily, you could kind of fill in the details, but it says the Trump DOJ has suspect Brian Cole arrested and facing explosive charges. What do we know about Brian Cole, Emily?
Yeah, we're starting to learn more. So what happened is out of absolutely nowhere. Yesterday, the FBI announced that they had made this arrest. They had a very vague press conference, and then Cole was charged in court. So Cole was in Woodbridge, Virginia, so a suburb of Washington, D.C., and 30-year-old right now, so it would have been about 25 back in 2021. The charging document, I have it up on my screen, says he is 5 feet 6 inches tall and wears corrective eyeglasses. That actually is important because as the hoodie suspect who placed those pipe bombs behind the Republican National Committee and the DNC then as well, was said to be roughly in that height range, sort of a short person for a man if it was a man. But now the Blaze came in hot a couple of weeks ago and accused a woman who currently works for the CIA of being the person in the hoodie, according to gait analysis. They retracted that story yesterday. This person has an alibi. They were said to be working for Capitol Police at the time. So all that is to say, the charging document makes it look a whole lot like the FBI under the Biden administration had all of the pieces of the puzzle and just did not put them together. And maybe that was for a nefarious reason. Maybe that was out of incompetence. It's always important to remember incompetence is a good explanation for a lot of what happens in DC. But, for example, during 2019 and 2020, the affidavit says, Cole purchased multiple items consistent with the components that were used to manufacture the pipe bombs placed at the RNC and DNC. The FBI obtained records for the checking account and 3 credit cards for the time period from January 2018 to January 2021. 3 additional credit cards were obtained for the time period of January 2018 to November 2025. The FBI reviewed the transaction history for all of these accounts. It looks like it was really basic police work. To be honest, and the pieces probably could have been put together a long time ago. So where this is going,
they pinged a cell tower, and then they found that he bought parts and equipment, right, for the bomb.
Right, exactly. So like pipe heads, all of those things. They were able to again do what's fairly basic police work. And so where this is going politically, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, Pam Bondi, they have all said that there was nothing new that they did. They were just combing through the pre-existing investigation and looking for scraps of information that may already be there. Obviously, they didn't trust the investigation. And from there, they kind of found a break in the case. They said it was, quote, forensic evidence. So where this is going politically is already leaks have gone into different media publications that Brian Cole may have some Antifa connections. It looks like his family is left-wing. Everyone should be careful with that, too, because that could, even if that is, quote, Antifa, even if he does have some type of, like, Antifa motivation, you then have to ask what the FBI's involvement with that Antifa group might have been, because that's where this is all heading is if the FBI was aware of this information years ago, why did they stop or why did they not figure it out publicly, at least? I think there's some open
That's an
questions.
interesting point.
Yeah, and they were very coy about assets in the crowd and actual agents in the crowd on January 6th for a long time. And then Thomas Massie and others kind of forced them to come to the table and say they did have assets who were there. Some who were just there by happenstance. They had been working with the FBI as informants essentially and were there. Others, I think it was a couple at least, that were there intentionally. So I was at January 6th. I was reporting and
okay, good to clarify. Good to
yes,
clarify
I always have to clarify that.
Reporting.
Yeah, quote unquote reporting. Well, actually, I started that day at the Ellipse at Trump's speech because there had been like legit Antifa activity on BLM Plaza, which was right where Trump's speech was going to be that whole summer. And so that's why I went down there that day. And I ended up walking and trying to get interviews with people who were walking over to the Capitol. And I saw legitimate, genuine MAGA people be whipped into a frenzy. That was not, they were not, it wasn't just a crowd of feds. It was a lot of like average, I saw a soccer mom at one point, like ushering people over, it was like the craziest thing I've ever seen. It was not a crowd of feds. There were a lot of people who have come out since because they were prosecuted for it, told and said exactly why they did what they did. It's because they thought the election was being stolen. So if there were feds, we need to know. If they were people contributing to the whipping of MAGA into that frenzy, we need to know. It doesn't undermine the fact that there were a whole lot of people that did heinous illegal activity that day who weren't just doing it because feds were whipping them up and telling them to. They have agency too. So I do think, and Ryan, I'm curious what you make of that. That's where this is heading, is a question of whether the FBI just didn't want some type of link to the pipe bomb placement, which has always been very weird. They didn't want some type of link to it to come out into the public view.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to explain why it took this long to make an arrest if they weren't really relying on any new information and they were just, that it was out there for them. I think also the Blaze looks like they're going to cook over this. That story that they did immediately when you read it reeked of defamation. You're like, hold on, whoa. You're like, the defenses against defamation are, one, if they're a public figure, then there's a much higher bar for that public figure to be able to come after you for saying something false about them. This woman that they singled out was not remotely a public figure, and seemed to have a decent alibi. So, like, if you in their retraction, it's clear the retraction was written by a lawyer, and they're saying, like, we published this information in good faith with our belief that it was accurate, but we're now retracting it because it looks like it isn't. But in order to get out of defamation, you have to show that if they can show that you knew or should have known that what you were writing was false, then you're in trouble. And they kind of should have known because, she had a real alibi. They didn't really have enough evidence to stack on the other side of that. This weird, they compared her gait and they did some gait analysis. It's like, whoa, guys, you can't accuse somebody of being a pipe bomber. And the other thing you need for defamation is to prove actual damages. And I can imagine that this woman suffered legitimate, serious, genuine damages from millions of people thinking that she's a pipe bomber. So I think, Blaze's defamation insurance is going to get a workout, I would suspect, from this.
So Ryan, what do you make of the evidence on Brian Cole? Now there's this, they say that they pinged, or his cell phone pinged cell towers that were in the area. We have this these photos, this video footage, and they say that he bought parts that could create a bomb, but those parts were bought over the course of months, if not years, if I'm mistaken. So,
and he went to several different years, and he also went to multiple different locations, it looks like.
Now, I believe everything Kash Patel says. That's my particular hill that I die on this show. But Ryan, what's your believe meter at right now?
Yeah, Ryan, are you with Massey on this? Let's see what they've got. I'm not buying it. Thomas Massey posted at 9:22 a.m. yesterday after the arrest was announced.
I think it is good practice to always be skeptical of all federal indictments. That just as citizens, we should be demanding extraordinary evidence when claims are made. You can't believe what's in an indictment just because the feds put it in an indictment. We'll see. I'm not saying he's didn't do it either. I don't know that for certain either.
I mean, who knows if this is all that they have, but it does seem like a lot of the stuff that you're putting up here, Emily, is just circumstantial stuff. You would need more than this to actually convict him, right? To say, he bought some component parts and his phone was generally in the area, but that wouldn't be enough for a conviction, right?
I guess it'll depend on the jury. I mean, if you're pinging it, if your cell phone, you live in Woodbridge and your cell phone's pinging in the area of the RNC and DNC the night of January 5th when they say they have video of the bombs being placed. If you roughly resemble the person on the video, and then they have these credit card records here. Also the other thing that we're missing is his car was a half a mile from the bombs where the bombs were on January 5th, so it was parked on Capitol Hill. And then they have all of these credit card records that see him allegedly buying the black end caps for those pipes. And if people don't remember what the pipe bombs looked like, it is always worth revisiting. They're so hilarious. I'm sorry, but like they look cartoonish. They have literal like oven timers strapped
Matt, go get
to
those for us.
PVC
Try
pipe.
to pull those
It's
for
like,
us.
Yeah,
it's
let's see.
completely insane.
Like something I would make.
Yeah, I'm with Ryan. Like, always be completely skeptical of all of this stuff.
So
it looks like
he can't be a real Antifa member. He's not a real Antifa super soldier because they would have had spotless.
They would use
practice on that.
they would use cash at the Home Depot. Yeah.
Right. Well, I think they said in the indictment that he did use cash at one of the places. Yeah.
Oh, at other places he used cash?
Yeah, at some
Or
of
they
the
just
places.
have video of him going in and buying it.
I guess, yeah, or maybe a cell phone pinging or something like that. Here, I got a picture here of what one of these pipe bombs supposedly
these are
looked
wild.
like here. So I guess that's what it looks like according to. I mean, yeah, he's got it's a kitchen timer. It's like a literal kitchen timer that you would have, and then it's wiring into the pipe. But
yeah, and
I don't know.
I imagine the detectives were like, okay, there's only a few Home Depots, within 10 miles of here.
But who amongst us hasn't purchased 12 black end caps and 2 galvanized end caps from 4 different Home Depots in Northern Virginia?
Yeah,
we've all been there,
bro. You got to go to Ohio or whatever to get your, and like it does show like this is not the 1970s. Like they're going to catch you doing this stuff. Like you can you can pay in cash, you can take precautions, but the surveillance state is impressive.
Yeah.
So Emily, what's the
not
significance?
even that hard. Just like, hey, Home Depot, like who bought 12 caps and a kitchen?
They're narcs. They're narcs, as we know.
Now, Home Depot's going to narc you out. Like Home Depot, like if you're
10 out of 10 times.
Yes, if you thought Home Depot was ride or die for you, no, not happening.
So Emily, like, what is the larger significance of this January 6th pipe bomb around the event of January 6th? And like, what is the Trump administration or DOJ trying to do with this to kind of like maybe reframe or recontextualize the events? Because what I know from the pipe bombs is that a lot of the authorities said that those pipe bomb threats diverted resources during really crucial hours that could have allowed them to contain more of the January 6th event. And also this sense that, well, if the bombs were placed, that some of this was premeditated, right? That this wasn't just an in-the-moment fervor, but if someone planted these bombs, that there was a larger plan before the Trump rally and yada, yada. What do you make of all that?
Yeah, so I'll read a post here from Julie Kelly, who's one of the kind of people on the right who's followed this really closely. She said, this is where she's going with it. She says, Washington Post also reporting Cole's quote-unquote extremist political views. As I've already said on an interview this morning, it appears the Ray FBI buried the pipe bomb investigation in early 2021 after discovering the hoodie individual seen on January 5 was not MAGA, but was Antifa. That would have not only decimated the developing January 6 insurrection narrative at the time, but completely contradicted Ray's early insistence that Antifa played no role in January 6th. Huge scandal if true. I'm saying that just to give a sort of flavor of where everyone's going with this, but I think it does test a couple of the narratives that people on the right have had going into this, which is one of them was that there were in the circles and people on the right who followed this story closely, they would rightfully point out that, first of all, there are bomb-sniffing dogs around the DNC at the time that the alleged pipe bomb was there. Nobody caught it. Kamala Harris was being moved around through that area. There was no, like, intense panic about the fact, like, that stuff was genuinely a bit strange. The man who was one of the FBI officials overseeing the Gretchen Whitmer Fed kidnapping plot as Nick Terse and others. And Terse is still at The Intercept, right, Ryan? That was,
yeah.
And I think you probably were still there when that reporting was happening and probably edited some of that. Yes. Yep. Excellent reporting. And that guy had been reassigned to DC. And all of a sudden, J6, pipe bomb, all of that stuff happens. And so the suggestion by people who bring that up is whether any of this was organic. So what that tests is this idea that it's Antifa, unless Antifa is like working hand in glove with the feds. And so I don't think anybody has a clear victory, like a clear narrative victory going forward. There's just so much. The pipe bomb story is just, it's very hard to believe that some random lib did all of this, and all of the strange stuff that happened afterwards was just because Chris Wray was trying to bury an Antifa plot. I don't know. Honestly, I think there's some more weirdness happening. It seems too strange that these things were there and nobody saw them for 15 hours. Nobody caught them for 15 hours. But yeah, to Griffin's point, that is the implication is that in some way the pipe bombs were used to divert resources from the Capitol so that the Capitol would fall. And then you would have this like false flag thing to pin on MAGA. So it gets really weedy and complicated with pipe bomb theories. But if what the MAGA FBI is saying is that it was just an Antifa guy, and there was no FBI involvement, then other than burying the story, then some of those theories get challenged. Though,
like, what would be the narrative then that they're trying to sell if it was an Antifa guy, that he just happened to do this the day before to try to pin it on MAGA or something? Or what's the logic behind that?
Yeah, to create, that's why I think it challenges some of those narratives, because
or that the FBI put him up to it. Yeah, it could be that too.
Yeah, the Fed line makes a lot more sense to me.
I agree.
But it could be Fed Tifa, could be a combination of both. So
Not
all right,
impossible.
well,
Mac, you've seen that, haven't you? You've seen Fed Tifa.
You've seen that?
We've seen a couple Fed Tifas out there.
Oh, on your DC protest observations, you've seen
DC,
some Fed Tifa?
Atlanta a few times, yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Well,
It's a thing.
January 6th, the story that keeps on giving. I wanted to move us over to Palantir and the Deal Book Summit. What a summit that happened. All sorts of characters that Andrew Ross Sorkin was speaking to, but we wanted to focus on CEO Alex Karp of Palantir, who was getting really excited about his business. I think that's the most, I don't know, PC way to describe it.
Griffin, I love how you shepherd us through the news stories like it's American Bandstand. Like, let's move on to Palantir.
I'm trying to keep a brisk pace because we have so many stories to get to. Mac, why don't we play this first clip from CEO Alex Karp?
What is the biggest problem in this culture? I'll tell you the biggest problem. No one believes the institutions are credible. And why don't they believe they're? And I struggle to believe they're credible too, because these business leaders make completely stupid decisions. And they get bailed out. A year later, they're getting huge bonuses. What do the American people get? Nothing. And that's a huge problem. Like, if you make, so I think the real version is, like, I made a lot of decisions when we began talking, annoying each other 10 years ago. Hopefully I'm annoying you as much as 10 years ago, or more. When
man.
I made you know this, every decision Palantir made, FDAs, going public, building products, enterprise, large data sets, going to government, acknowledging American superiority, being pro-meritocracy, launching an AI platform, calling into question that AI models would actually be able to perform without orchestration. Every single one, our ontology, every single one of those was viewed as stupid. You know what I actually have grown to appreciate about capitalism? All the people who made the right decisions went broke, are going out of business, or now have to copy us. Microsoft launched ontology. Everyone wants to do FDEs. Everyone basically copies me and Palantir.
This is the stable leadership that I want in charge of my mass surveillance death company.
Everyone that we have to watch now is like, yeah. I mean, is everyone that we watch now either drunk or geeked out? I mean, Ryan, like, what do we make of this? Like this Alex Karp guy.
I mean, he's our philosopher king, right? You know, I guess he's the surveillance god that we deserve. This is, we're headed to a pretty dark place, and the people that we're empowering aren't obscuring from the public, you know, who they are and what they're about.
We also have another clip here, Mac, where that's, you know, slightly more substantive about the inner workings of the Palantir business here, and that he talked about eliminating or not valuing the humanities department of Palantir. Why don't we take a listen to that?
Take the media out of it. There's a group of 13 former Palantir employees who wrote an open letter to you, and they stated, quote, that Palantir's leadership has abandoned its founding ideals.
We have 5,000 ex-Palantirians and 4,000 current Palantirians. And by the way, we encourage a culture of disagreement, which exists. Anyone can come visit us. You'll find half the people disagreeing with me, at least on any issue. But I just want to say, we have 5,000 ex-Palantirians. You have 13, half of whom were in the humanities department of Palantir, which is a little bit like being in the printing press part of New York Times, a very important part, but no one's really listening to your opinion. So if you have an organization, I'll tell you what, a lot of Palantirians are mostly uncomfortable. Most Palantirians are like you. I don't know who you are because Chris, you're an objective journalist, but they broadly are okay with, they like the work we do in Ukraine. By the way, could Europeans finally stick up for us since we're basically we're between us and Russia? But they're very proud of that in general, although that's also very controversial in non-elite circles. That's important to remember. They're pretty okay with Israel stuff, especially since a lot of the BS written about us on the right, not primarily on the left, that somehow we're doing facial recognition stuff and we're building a database. Any technical person knows that's BS. By the way, if you've heard that and you believe that, listen to the person who told you that, do 10 minutes of research, and you'll see who has credibility for you.
So is he denying there at the end that he's working with the Israelis on targeting in Gaza? Is that what he was doing at the end there?
I think what he's doing is denying, and it is a sort of cliche about Palantir mistake that some people make, which is that they are themselves doing the CCTV, pulling all of that data. Instead, what they do, as though this is much better, is helps the government streamline the analysis of these mountains and mountains of data. Technically, that's, I think, the distinction that he's trying to make. And obviously it is a real distinction. But it's still, they're still obviously massively bolstering the surveillance state. Palantir was started with money from the CIA's venture capital firm, which is a thing that exists. And one of the reasons is that Thiel had this idea to outsource surveillance analysis in a way that was like civil libertarianism. And the CIA obviously sees that and is like, great, you have the veneer of civil libertarianism for this massive surveillance analysis technology. And Thiel claims that it's better, and Karpel claim that it's better that Palantir does it than the government itself or someone else, because Palantir has all of these guardrails and civil liberties and that sort of thing. So that's where they go with this. But, I don't think anyone's happy to say or anyone's super supportive of the idea that people are making massive profits off of streamlining the analysis of mass surveillance.
And Ryan, what do you think about the checks and balances within the Palantir if he's not really listening to anyone in the humanities department?
Do they have a humanities department? I don't even understand what that means. I was just searching now. Maybe he's referring colloquially to some other department that they do have. What would a humanities department do at Palantir? But sure, I don't know. Maybe there's some room for disagreement in there. But Karp seems like a guy that doesn't lack for confidence, and that he's gonna make a decision. He's gonna execute it, and I think he'd be proud of that. His point is fair that all right, you got 9,000 current and former employees. You're going to be able to find some that are critical of it. The entire whether or not people inside Palantir are critical of it. I think basically the entire world is I wish this wasn't happening. Wish this company was not doing the things that this company's doing, but they're still doing it. So,
I think there is something to be said about this bizarre era of the billionaire celebrity, the CEO celebrity, with how comfortable all of these people who are doing, I think, objectively evil things around the world, doing public appearances like this, publicly defending themselves, trying to be celebrities to hype up, their stocks and things like that. I think there's something deeply dark about that in my view, because I feel like a long time ago in this country, we used to have billionaires sort of just mind their own business and just sort of fade into the background. And now it's like every single one of them has to be out in the public eye. They have to be celebrated. They have to be praised. They have to, be viewed as some sort of like gods. And I think there's something extremely dystopian about that.
The other thing worth mentioning is that CARP has been for a long time like a Democratic donor who backed Kamala Harris in 2024, which is just hilarious and on so many different levels. He was against Donald Trump. He said he was voting against Donald Trump. And then Palantir has just been showered with contracts in the Trump era from Republicans, One Big Beautiful Bill and such. So it's all, they're winning no matter what at the end of the day. And,
So he was a K-hiver?
He was in the K-hive.
Wow. That's crazy.
He was doing mass surveillance on the Bernie bros.
Well, maybe he made the K-hive.
Well, he probably
created
did.
it.
Yeah. But yeah, to Mac's point, there is this sort of like unimpeachableness about all these guys going out there. I mean, we had the Kalshi CEO who looks like a SoundCloud rapper saying that we're going to financialize like every aspect of your life. We've got Peter Thiel being like, I am not the Antichrist. Wink, wink, wink. Like, yeah, it seems like there are these terrible, terrible public advocates for their businesses that could only make you concerned or worried about the future, which is the exact opposite of what a spokesman should be for a company, which to me only kind of like exudes the fact that how unimpeachable, how kind of they have the whole keys to the kingdom here and they can say whatever the hell they want.
Yeah. I mean, the Palantir is not going anywhere. And the reason I mention that is to say it's not going anywhere in a Dem administration either. Like Palantir is here to say the government is addicted to Palantir's analysis software. So that's our future.
Should we listen to this last clip that we have of him, I guess, trying to portray Palantir as being a champion of the working class somehow? Okay. Let's go ahead and watch this last one here.
Maybe he watches War Room with Steve Bannon.
In this country, you have 1% of the country in prison, 1% who were in prison and therefore have no rights. Do you know what happens to you when you go to prison? They take you away from your kids. You know who that happens to? Disproportionately working class, disproportionately black and Hispanic men and white men in the underclass. Where are the thousands of articles about them? Nobody cares, and they don't care because it does not either serve the ability, the desire to force me to vote for one party, which basically takes away all my power. That's effectually what it does. If I agree to say this is the worst thing in the world, I essentially have given up my vote. My vote is not for you. My vote is for these two issues. The second reason they don't care is because somehow no one has empathy with any of those people because none of us really deal with those people. At Palantir, we are on the side of working class Americans. We support people who go to the military, we save their lives, we bring them home safer. Our AI actually makes workers more wealthy, more valuable. And the 10 to 15 million people that love me despite what's written, half of them made a lot of money on us. And you know what they're like? They're like people like me who think, you know what? We have to do better. Of course we have to do better.
All right, I'm deeply confused about the transition that he just did there from like talking about, the mass imprisonment of Americans to Palantir is on the side of the working class. We're making American workers wealthy because we are enriching the American military's capabilities to do warfare overseas. I'm not really tracking the through line there.
Ryan, do you have any idea? I mean,
Ryan's like deep meditation on it. I think we broke Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, he's making people safer on the battlefield is his claim. So that's one claim. AI is going to make workers more productive and therefore richer. Like, I don't know how all productivity gains have flowed to the top to people like Alex Karp over the last 40, 50 years. So I don't know what policy he's pitching that is going to actually break that. So I don't see how he can make that claim with a straight face.
And is he saying they help put the right people in prison as opposed to
that's the part, where like with Mac, I'm like,
I don't know what he's saying.
I mean, maybe it's like, Larry Ellison had said, like, when, absolute mass surveillance is everywhere, then people will behave better.
Right.
And maybe it's good that people behave. I don't know, like that.
Well, it almost seemed like he was getting to like there's a structural like racism problem with the prison industrial complex or with policing, but then it's like Palantir is working with ICE. Palantir is working with local police outfits. So like, aren't you kind of reinforcing whatever structural issues that you see with that system? Like I don't know.
They still see themselves as people who are disrupting those systems and making them better. They've been doing that for a long time now. So I don't know. Like that's what they've been doing for a long time. So if they were making the system better, they would, have to show significant structural evidence of improvement, I would say. I think it's pretty clear that what their technology does is make mass surveillance a lot easier. They will say it makes it a lot more in line or a lot more aligned with like your constitutional rights, and a lot more efficacious in ways that if it's more effective and it's more aligned with your constitutional rights, then how could you possibly be against what Palantir is doing? If it's not Palantir, it's going to be some worse type of actor, which I don't think is a great argument for Palantir, to be perfectly honest.
There's also he calls them Palantirians. There is this sort of almost like this like cult like movement that he's trying to establish, right? If you're on our side, you're a Palantirian.
I think that's very Silicon Valley Silicon Valley around like 2008, 2009. They were like Googlers, and they were all doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. He does have some coalition of like cultists that support him and hype him up. So I think he is trying to directly feed into that and do sort of a performance for like a select group of the population that enjoys hearing him cracked out in interviews like that.
That's probably true.
I think there's some element to the idea that like if your entire life is helping to facilitate, blowing up Palestinian children and having, helping ICE to ship families to overseas concentration camps, then like maybe you do need to take the edge off every once in a while.
Yep. I don't know. Maybe they're helping like weigh the ICE employees, because there was that guy that got kicked out for being like 460 pounds.
We need an ICE weight database, an ICE obesity database.
Oh, I'm sure they have that.
All right. Well, I'm feeling, as a member of the working class, I'm feeling good. And I think that will leave us here for the free half of the show. We got big stories that we're saving for the second half for premium users. We're getting into the battle between TPUSA and one singular Candace Owens. We're also maybe going to be, Ryan told me he's been doing a lot more research into the Olivia Nuzzi story, and we have an incredible Olivia Nuzzi impersonation from Emily, always ready on deck. So get those sunglasses ready. And we got a few other stories. Maybe we'll get into a little bit more of the Kalshi betting, super funding of politics.
And Griffin, let's get your reaction to Netflix Warner Bros. Too in the second half.
Yeah, and we'll talk about Netflix. Folks, if you like going to the movies, and savor it while it lasts, because it is doomed at this point. We'll get into all that and more. You can go to breakingpoints.com to sign up, become a member. We'll also be answering questions from the audience, and we'll see you all there.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.